"Can I sit here?" a sick little girl asked the stranger at the coffee shop. He turned out to be a widowed CEO, millionaire searching for love. "Excuse me, can I sit here? I am really tired." A small, fragile voice broke through the quiet buzz of the coffee shop. Lucas Blake looked up from his untouched espresso. The steam still curled in the air, untouched like the rest of his morning. A little girl no older than 3 stood beside his table, clutching a worn-out teddy bear with one arm. Her other hand adjusted the edge of a pink woolen hat pulled snugly over her head. Her eyes, large and glassy, shone with exhaustion but still carried a gentle innocence. Her cheeks were pale, and there was a visible hint of weariness in the way she stood. He noticed her hair, or rather, the absence of it beneath the hat. He blinked, surprised. No one had spoken to him like that in a long time, let alone a child. Lucas Blake, 35, the enigmatic CEO of a tech empire, known for his tailored suits, calculated decisions, and a face that rarely cracked a smile, was not the kind of man strangers approached, especially not children. He looked into the girl's eyes, and something in him shifted. Those eyes. They pierced through him like a memory. His breath caught. They reminded him so much of Ethan. His little boy. The same softness, the same light, the same vulnerability that once looked up at him from a hospital bed and asked, "Will I still see Mommy tomorrow?" Lucas did not speak. He simply nodded and reached out with calm, precise movement. He slid out the chair across from him. Then, after a moment of hesitation, he loosened the charcoal scarf from around his neck and gently draped it over the girl's shoulders. The little girl blinked in surprise but smiled, one of those innocent, trusting smiles that had long vanished from his world. She climbed up onto the chair with effort, her legs too short to reach the ground. She set her teddy bear on the table and patted its head affectionately. "This is Hope," she said, looking up at him. "She's tired too." Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat. "Lily?" she called, her voice high with panic. She rushed from the counter toward them, her eyes darting between her daughter and the strange man sitting across from her. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know she—" Lucas raised a hand, not rudely, just enough to calm her. His voice was steady, surprisingly gentle. "It's all right, she's—" "Lovely." The young woman hesitated, clearly conflicted. Her eyes took in his sharp suit, the leather gloves beside his coffee cup, the kind but unreadable expression on his face. She looked down at Lily, now wrapped in his scarf and humming softly to her teddy bear. Something in her softened. Still, she stepped forward and gently took her daughter's hand. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice tinged with embarrassment. "But we should go." Lucas nodded once, not demanding, not questioning, just a silent understanding. The woman turned away, lifting Lily into her arms. The child leaned into her shoulder but waved a tiny hand back at him. "Bye-bye, mister." He watched them leave, the way the mother held her daughter tightly, protectively, as if the world outside was a storm and she was the only shelter the child had. Their coats were thin. The woman's boots were worn at the soles. The child's mittens were mismatched. Lucas did not move. The scarf remained draped around the now empty chair. His coffee was cold. For 3 years he had mastered the art of indifference. He had learned how to fill his days with meetings, numbers, and business lunches that ended with empty smiles. He had told himself he was over it, that love, loss, and emotion belonged to another life, a life buried with Claire and Ethan. But today, a child walked up to him and asked for a seat, and something had cracked. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the glass door that had just closed behind them. Snow began to fall lightly outside, settling on the sidewalk like dust on memories, and for the first time in a long time, Lucas felt something stir within his chest, faint but undeniable, not grief, not guilt, something warmer, hope. Central Park was quiet that Sunday morning, hushed under winter's breath. Bare trees reached into a pale sky as Lucas Blake sat alone on a worn wooden bench. Once this had been a place for laughter with Claire and little Ethan, feeding birds, sharing cocoa. Now it was just another memory in a city filled with ghosts. He sipped lukewarm coffee, watching families stroll by, fathers lifting children, mothers adjusting scarves. Then he saw her, Lily. She spun gently on a merry-go-round, cheeks pink from the cold, a too large knitted hat slipping to one side. One hand clutched a teddy bear, the other stretched out like wings. Lucas blinked. It was her, the little girl from the cafe. A few feet away sat her mother, Emma, holding a worn paperback but never taking her eyes off Lily. Lily spotted him and lit up. She jumped down, running toward him with tiny legs and boundless joy. "Scarf man," she called, waving her bear. Lucas smiled, kneeling slightly as she flung her arms around his leg. "Well, someone remembers me," he chuckled. Emma stood, clearly surprised, but didn't rush forward. "Hi," she said carefully. "Hi," Lucas replied gently. "Looks like she has a good memory." "She remembers kindness," Emma said, a little embarrassed. "I brought something," he added, pulling a small bag from his coat pocket. He handed Lily a chocolate-dipped cone. Her eyes widened in delight. Emma hesitated. "It's cold." "Ice cream, still ice cream," Lucas said with a grin. She laughed. "You're not wrong." They sat together, Lucas and Emma on either end of the bench, Lily in the middle, swinging her legs, humming softly. "She's incredible," Lucas said after a while. "Full of life," Emma nodded. "She's a fighter." "Always has been," Lucas glanced over. "If you don't mind, what's her condition?" Emma sighed. "Leukemia. It's been a year of hospitals, chemo, long nights." She paused. "I studied early childhood education, wanted to teach kindergarten. Then I got pregnant. Her dad left before she was born. I've been cleaning, waitressing, whatever I can." Lucas's throat tightened. There was no bitterness in her voice, just quiet strength. It reminded him of Claire. "She's lucky to have you," he said. Emma shook her head. "I feel like I'm failing." "You're not." Lily was now chasing a pigeon, laughing freely. "I had a son," Lucas said suddenly. "Ethan. He'd be 5 now." Emma turned to him. "My wife Claire died of ovarian cancer 3 years ago. Ethan passed in a car accident with his nanny 2 years later. I was in London when I got the call." "I'm so sorry," Emma whispered. "I haven't said it out loud in a long time. I buried everything under work. It was easier." Emma gently placed her hand on his. It was a quiet gesture, but grounding. "I see them in you and Lily," he said. "The strength, the fight." They watched Lily climb a slide. Lucas stood instinctively, ready. As she reached the bottom, he caught her gently. "Careful, princess," he said, brushing snow from her coat. Lily beamed. "You sound like my daddy in my dreams." Lucas's eyes welled. He turned so she would not see him wipe the tear. The snow began to fall again, light and silent, like memories returning home. Lucas began showing up at the cafe more often after that morning in the park. Nothing was said, nothing arranged, but each day around 10 he would walk through the door and head straight for the table by the window. The seat across from him rarely stayed empty for long. "Scarf man!" Lily would exclaim whenever she spotted him. She'd dash ahead of her mother, throwing her arms around his leg or holding up her hand for a high five. Lucas, once reserved and expressionless, would always smile, quietly but genuinely. Emma followed behind, often a little hesitant. She greeted Lucas with a small nod, sometimes a polite smile, and usually chose a separate table nearby, but slowly her barriers softened. When Lucas asked about Lily's treatment, she began to answer more than just the bare minimum. "She has weekly chemo," Emma explained one morning, cupping a warm paper cup between her palms. "It makes her nauseous and tired, but she bounces back faster than I do." Lucas listened, never interrupting. He watched Lily closely. On her good days, she twirled beside the table, singing to her bear. On hard days, she sat quietly in the booth, resting her head on her mother's lap. One cold morning, Lucas arrived with a small, carefully wrapped box. "I saw this and thought of her," he said, handing it to Emma first. Inside was a plush teddy bear dressed in scrubs, a toy stethoscope around its neck. "Dr. Bear," read the tag. "He's for the days when she doesn't want to eat," Lucas said, crouching to Lily's level. "He's very persuasive," Lily squealed in delight. "Dr. Bear says pancakes are medicine," she giggled, hugging it tightly. Emma looked at Lucas, her guard lowered for just a moment. That was incredibly thoughtful. Lucas gave a small shrug, his voice quiet. She deserved a teammate. As days turned to weeks, a rhythm developed. Lucas would arrive early, sometimes with Lily's favorite muffin. Emma started sitting closer. Occasionally, all three shared the table, talking about books, cartoons, Lily's dreams of growing up to ride unicorns and eat ice cream for breakfast. Emma also began sharing more about her life, how she juggled shifts at a diner, cleaned apartments at night, and barely slept between hospital visits and grocery runs. She told him about her unfinished degree in early childhood education and how she'd once dreamed of being a teacher. Lucas never judged, he just listened. Then came the snow. It was one of those bitter mornings when the cold bit through every layer. Emma and Lily stepped out of the cafe just ahead of Lucas. He had stayed behind to settle the bill, despite Emma's protests. As he stepped outside, he heard Lily cry out, "Mommy!" Her voice was weak, her face pale beneath the hat. She was shivering violently. "She's burning up," Emma gasped, crouching beside her. "This came out of nowhere. She was fine a minute ago." Lucas didn't hesitate. He knelt down. "Give her to me," he said firmly but gently. Emma hesitated, out of instinct, not distrust, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw steadiness. No fear, no panic. "Please," he said softly. "I'll drive." Emma nodded. Lucas wrapped Lily in his coat, cradling her tightly, shielding her from the wind as he rushed to his black SUV. Emma climbed in after them, holding Lily's hand the entire way. Lucas drove quickly but carefully through the snow-slicked streets, his jaw tight, eyes sharp. At the ER, he stayed by their side. He didn't hover, didn't panic. He simply sat quietly beside Emma as she held Lily close, whispering soothing words. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. Lucas never left. Emma watched him, barely believing this was the same man she'd once thought too distant to reach. He was here, fully, unwaveringly present. In the stillness of that room, under harsh fluorescent lights and the rhythmic beep of machines, Emma felt something unexpected. Not fear, not dependence, but trust. Real and quiet and deeply earned. The hospital visit had ended with good news. Lily's fever was controlled, and the doctors assured Emma it was a side effect of the chemotherapy, not unexpected, though still frightening. Emma thanked Lucas quietly that evening, her voice soft and sincere. He simply nodded and offered to drive them home. She declined. Some things she still felt she needed to do alone. Days passed. Emma focused on Lily's recovery, juggling work and appointments as usual. It was only when she received the discharge papers that her world tilted. "Your balance has been cleared," the nurse said with a smile. "Mr. Blake took care of it." Emma froze. "What?" "He handled the full amount this morning. Very generous man." Emma said nothing, just took the papers and walked out of the hospital with Lily in silence. But inside her emotions churned. Confusion, anger, and something else she refused to name. That afternoon she stood outside Lucas's office building, heart pounding against her ribs. When the elevator doors opened and she stepped onto the top floor, she was a storm contained in a small frame. He looked up from his desk, surprised to see her. "Emma? Did you think I wouldn't find out?" she snapped, walking in without invitation. Lucas stood. "I was going to tell you." "When?" she demanded. "After you decided what else I couldn't handle on my own?" He exhaled slowly. It wasn't like that. "You paid for everything, behind my back," Emma continued. "Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? I was trying to help." "No," she said sharply. "You were trying to fix something." Like I'm just another broken thing money can mend? Lucas was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. I know I crossed a line, but it wasn't about money. It was about her. About not standing by again and doing nothing. Emma's eyes flashed. Again? Lucas swallowed hard. Claire, my wife, was dying right in front of me, and all I could do was sit there, hold her hand, watch the life drain out of her, day by day. Then Ethan, one phone call and he was gone too. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Emma faltered. Her anger, though still burning, flickered under the weight of his words. I couldn't save them, he continued. But Lily's still here. You're still here. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could do something that mattered. The silence between them stretched. I didn't ask you to, Emma said finally, her voice trembling. I didn't ask anyone to save us. I know, Lucas replied, but I wanted to. She left without another word. 2 days later, the tabloid struck. Emma had just finished folding laundry when her phone buzzed with a link from one of the daycare moms. The headline hit her like a slap. Billionaire CEO Lucas Blake rebrands with tragic mother-daughter duo. Charity stunt or genuine heart? There were photos. At the park, at the cafe. Him holding Lily's hand, her resting on his shoulder. Emma's vision blurred. She clicked out of the article, heart racing, her stomach turned. Had he known? Had all of it been calculated? Was Lily, a convenient image? She blocked his number that night, blocked his email, refused his messages at the door. When he showed up at the cafe the next morning, she was not there. Lucas stood alone at the window table, watching the empty chair across from him like it might somehow fill itself. 3 days later, he knocked on her apartment door. Emma opened it part way, her expression cold. I didn't know about the article, he said immediately. I swear to you, Emma, I didn't leak anything. I didn't want that. But it happened, she said flatly. And now we're public sympathy points for your reputation. That's not what this is, Lucas said. You know me better than that. Do I? She asked, eyes narrowing. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like everything you do has a camera angle. Lucas stepped back like she had struck him. Emma, I never used you, she shook her head. I don't know what to believe anymore. Lucas wanted to fight, to explain, but she had already started closing the door. He stood there for a long time after it shut. That night, Lucas returned home, walked past the silent hallways of his penthouse, and opened a door he had not opened in months. Ethan's room. It still smelled faintly of baby powder and dreams. The toys were in their places, the books untouched. Lucas sat on the edge of the bed and lowered his head into his hands. He had tried. He had dared to feel again, and now the silence around him was louder than ever. The door creaked softly as Lucas pushed it open. Ethan's room had remained untouched, a time capsule of loss. Blue walls displayed faded dinosaur decals. A small rocket-sheeted bed lay perfectly made, and a plush stegosaurus rested on the pillow as if waiting for bedtime. Toys and books were neatly arranged on dusty shelves. It was a shrine, not a room in use. Lucas stepped inside, his footsteps hushed on the carpet. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and reached for a worn children's book labeled The Little Explorer. Its pages curled from frequent readings. He opened to the first page and began reading aloud, his voice cracking. Once upon a time, in a world full of stars, there lived a brave little explorer who believed anything was possible. His voice faltered, his hand trembling as he turned the page. Tears blurred his vision. He glanced at a framed photo on the dresser. Claire, radiant in a sun hat, holding baby Ethan. Ethan grinned, missing his 2 front teeth. Mint ice cream smeared around his mouth, captured in what Claire had called the perfect moment. Lucas closed the book, pressing it against his chest. The pain in his heart deepened. not sharp anymore, but hollow and weighty. Yet in that emptiness lay a spark, a chance for something new. He thought of Emma's smile and Lily's laughter. Their presence hadn't erased grief, but offered something else, hope, and a way to feel again. In that quiet moment, he understood his feelings for Emma were no longer pity or gratitude. They were love, slow, careful, unspoken, but unmistakable. With that realization came clarity. He was done running. Meanwhile, Lily stood at their front door, clutching her stuffed bear, Hope in one hand and a scribbled note in the other. Emma, humming as she unloaded groceries in the kitchen, didn't notice Lily slip away. The city air was cold, but Lily bundled herself in a pink coat and wool hat. She had overheard her mother on the phone speaking about Lucas. How he hadn't called, hadn't come by. She didn't understand every word, but knew this: Daddy Lucas was sad, and she missed him. So she grabbed Hope and her note, ventured down the stairs, and waited at the street corner by a woman boarding the bus. "Where are you going, sweetie?" the woman asked kindly. "To the coffee place," Lily replied earnestly, "where I met my scarf man." The woman laughed, assuming an adult was nearby. But when the bus arrived, Lily climbed on alone and sat by the window, framed by early evening light. When Emma looked up and realized Lily's jacket was missing, her small kitchen quieted. Panic set in. She searched every room. When she saw the front door ajar, fear erupted in her chest. She grabbed her phone with trembling fingers and dialed Lucas, terrified. "Lily's gone. I think she went looking for you." Lucas was already grabbing his coat. "Stay inside, I'll find her." He arrived at the cafe moments later, heart pounding. Snow began to fall softly, and then, there she was, tiny, alone. Clutching Hope tightly, boots dangling above the pavement, she sat patiently on their bench outside. Lucas jumped from the car and ran to her. "Lily?" She looked up and beamed. "I came to find you. Mama said you were gone." He knelt down and wrapped her in his arms, pressing his forehead gently to hers. Tears pooled in his eyes. "You can't do that, sweetheart. You scared us." Emma arrived breathless, her face contorted with fear. Then she saw Lily, safe in Lucas's arms, and could no longer hold back her tears. "I thought I lost her," she cried. Lucas stood calmly, still holding Lily, and looked Emma in the eyes. "You didn't lose her. And you don't have to go through this alone anymore." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks as she covered her mouth in emotion. She reached out, touching Lucas's arm. "I never believed I could ever have a family again," he said softly. "But if you let me, I want to try." Emma nodded, tears falling freely. She took his hand. Between them, Lily giggled and held Hope tighter, unaware of gravity but feeling certainty. The air in Central Park was crisp, the late afternoon sun casting golden rays through bare branches. Lucas stood by the old bench, hands in his coat pockets, heart pounding harder than expected. He was not sure what he hoped for. Forgiveness, maybe? A sign that the door he once thought closed might still open. Then he saw her. Lily. She spotted him first, her face lighting up. "Scarf man!" she shouted, running across the grass. Lucas knelt and swept her into a tight hug, laughing. "Hey, sunshine." Emma followed a few steps behind, cautious as ever, but seeing Lily's pure joy, her expression softened. She met Lucas's eyes and gave him a real smile, for the first time in weeks. That afternoon felt like a dream. Just a walk, a swing, and breadcrumbs for birds. Nothing grand. But for Lucas, it was everything. He pushed Lily on the swing, higher and higher, her giggles ringing through the air. He sat beside Emma on the bench, their shoulders almost touching. The silence between them felt peaceful now. For the first time in years, Lucas felt something he hadn't dared to name: peace. Later that week, he invited them on a small day trip to a farm outside the city. Emma hesitated, but Lily's excitement won her over. The farm was simple: wood fences, muddy trails, animals wandering freely. Lily was enchanted. Lucas held her hand as they fed carrots to a donkey, helped her pet a lamb, and even wove her a crown of grass. Emma watched from a short distance, arms crossed but her face soft. As Lily danced between them, Emma saw more than kindness in Lucas's actions. He belonged there, with them. On the ride home, Lily asleep in the back seat, Emma turned to him. "You're good with her. She makes it easy," he replied. "She told me, you're like the dad in her storybooks." Lucas tightened his grip on the wheel. "That's a big title." "You're doing just fine," she said gently. A few days later, Lucas invited Emma to lunch, not out of obligation, but as a partner. "I've been thinking," he said, stirring his coffee, "there are so many kids like Lily, families drowning in medical bills, single parents doing it all alone." Emma nodded, understanding too well. "I want to start a foundation," he continued. "Not for PR, just real help." "What kind of help?" she asked. "Grants, emotional support, play therapy, education. I want to name it after someone brave." "Lily?" "And Hope," he said, nodding to the bear Lily always carried. "Hope and Lily." Emma was stunned. "I want you to help lead it," he said. "Your heart, your background. It's exactly what this needs." She paused, then nodded. From that day on, they worked as partners. Emma organized story times, meetups, toy drives. She wrote lesson plans, led hospital reading hours, and brought warmth to every child she met. Lucas handled logistics, finances, expansion, but he never missed an event. He was there, for every meeting, for Emma, and always for Lily. Working together showed them more than compatibility. Emma saw Lucas's steadiness, the way he noticed when she was overwhelmed, the gentleness he offered in silence. Lucas saw her brilliance, her calm in chaos, her compassion, her unwavering strength. She wasn't just Lily's mother. She was the woman he admired. And admiration turned quietly, steadily, into something more. One night after a fundraiser, as they packed up alone, Lucas looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, he saw not just the woman who'd walked unexpectedly into his life. He saw the woman he wanted to never walk out. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Emma's voice on the other end was trembling, panicked. "She's burning up. She can't breathe properly. I'm calling an ambulance." Lucas was already putting on his coat. "I'll meet you there." At the hospital, chaos swallowed them. Doctors rushed Lily down the hallway as alarms beeped. Her tiny body looked even smaller in the flurry of motion, tubes, wires, oxygen mask. Emma collapsed onto a waiting room bench, her hands shaking, her eyes wide and empty. Lucas arrived seconds later, spotted her, and dropped to his knees in front of her. "She's in ICU," she whispered. "They said complications from the treatment. They don't know if she'll—" Her voice broke, and she folded in on herself, gasping through tears. Without a word, Lucas wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close. She didn't resist. "I'm here," he murmured into her hair. "I'm not going anywhere," Emma sobbed into his shoulder, her fingers gripping his coat like she might fall apart if she let go. Hours passed. Lucas paced, made calls. Within the hour, a private medical team from out of state was en route. Specialists in pediatric oncology. The best. Emma watched in stunned silence as he coordinated everything. Never frantic, never boastful. Just focused, committed. "She's my family too," he said quietly, as if answering the question she hadn't dared ask. When the doctors emerged from ICU later that morning, their expressions were cautious but not grim. "She's stable," the lead physician said. "Still critical, but she's fighting." Lucas exhaled and sat beside Emma in the waiting room. She turned to him with bloodshot eyes, reached out slowly and took his hand, not in gratitude, in need, in trust. He laced his fingers through hers and they sat like that for a long time, no words, just the hum of machines and the scent of disinfectant in the air. Over the next few days, Emma barely left Lily's side. Lucas stayed too. He brought her fresh clothes, made her eat when she forgot, rubbed her shoulders when stress locked her muscles tight. It was in those quiet, painful hours that something unspoken grew stronger. When Lily finally opened her eyes again, her voice was hoarse but smiling. "Mommy, Lucas, I'm still alive?" Emma nodded through tears. Lucas bent down to kiss her forehead. "Yes, you brave little star, you're still here." And that night, when Emma fell asleep in the hospital recliner, Lucas sat watching them, mother and daughter tangled in a blanket of exhaustion and love. He knew then, without question, where his heart belonged. 1 week later, Lily was discharged, with cautious optimism and a new treatment plan. Lucas brought them home, not to the apartment Emma had once tried to make feel like more than survival, but to his house, his real home. It was Emma who hesitated, standing in the grand foyer beneath crystal lights and polished marble floors. "I don't belong in a place like this," she whispered. Lucas knelt beside Lily, who was already marveling at the sweeping staircase. Then he looked up at Emma. "Yes, you do," he said, "because this isn't just a house anymore. Not without you two." That night, the staff in Lucas's mansion saw something they never imagined. Their distant, reserved boss was crawling on the floor with a little girl pretending to be a dragon. He tucked her into a guest room that quickly became hers, complete with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. And he stood in the doorway long after she had fallen asleep, watching her breathe. Every morning after that, Lily would burst into the kitchen and shout, "Lucas, I'm still alive!" And every time, Lucas would smile, open his arms and reply, "And that's the best news of the day." 1 year later, the world looked different. Lily's hair had started to grow back, soft golden wisps that framed her round cheeks. She no longer needed her woolen hat. Her footsteps were strong now, confident. She ran ahead of them in the park, skipping between benches, her laughter echoing like wind chimes through spring air. Emma watched her daughter with a quiet smile, her hand nestled in Lucas's. Life had been gentler lately, no longer defined by fear or scarcity, but by possibility. Lucas had become a part of everything: doctor visits, school applications, bedtime stories. The man once haunted by silence now woke up to "Daddy Lucas" every morning. That Saturday, Lucas suggested a walk. He led them through the city, hand in hand, down familiar streets that still carried memories. Emma didn't think twice when they turned the corner and found themselves standing in front of the little cafe with the crooked sign. The cafe where it had all begun. She laughed softly. "Wow, I haven't been here in so long." "Come on," Lucas said, gently guiding her inside. It was just as she remembered. Warm, modest, the scent of coffee and fresh bread curling through the air, and there, by the window, the same table waited. Empty. Waiting. They took their seats. Lucas across from her, Lily climbing into the middle chair just like before. Emma shook her head in disbelief. "You planned this, didn't you?" Lucas only smiled. Lily looked around, her eyes suddenly wide with recognition. She gasped and clapped her hands. "This is it! This is where I said it." Emma blinked. "Said what?" The little girl grinned. "Where I said, 'Can I sit here?'" She looked at Lucas. "Remember, Scarf Man?" He chuckled. "How could I forget?" Emma's eyes welled with emotion. She reached across the table, squeezing Lucas's hand. "This place really did change everything." Lucas nodded, then stood up slowly, reached into his coat pocket and walked around the table. Emma frowned in confusion. "What are you?" He dropped to one knee beside her. Her breath caught. Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. No diamonds screaming for attention. Just a symbol of love, real, steady, and forever. His voice was calm, but his eyes shimmered. "The first time you walked into my life, it was because your daughter asked me if she could sit here. And I had no idea that she, both of you, would change everything for me." Emma's hands flew to her mouth, already trembling. "I lost my first family," he continued, "and for a long time, I believed I wasn't allowed to love again. But you, Emma, You brought me back. You reminded me how to feel, how to hope." He looked over at Lily, who was watching intently, then back at Emma. "I know nothing in life is guaranteed, but if there's one thing I'm sure of, it's this. I want to spend whatever time we have left with you. All of it. Will you marry me?" Emma couldn't speak. Her tears spilled freely, her heart full to the brim. She nodded. Lucas exhaled, visibly emotional, and slipped the ring onto her finger. "Mommy said yes," Lily squealed, throwing her arms around both of them. "You're going to be my daddy for real." People in the cafe clapped quietly. The barista smiled from behind the counter. The sun filtered in through the window, bathing the little family in golden light. Outside, the world moved on, unaware of the moment unfolding within these four walls. But for Lucas, Emma, and Lily, time had paused. Just long enough to seal a promise made not with grand gestures, but with a simple, heartfelt question. Can I sit here? Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey through Can I Sit Here? A story that reminds us how even the smallest gestures can lead to the most life-changing moments. Lucas, Emma, and little Lily showed us that love doesn't always arrive with grand entrances. It sometimes walks quietly into a coffee shop and asks for a seat. If this story touched your heart, made you smile, or brought a tear to your eye, we invite you to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories, where every tale is crafted to heal, inspire, and remind us of the beauty in human connection. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances and the magic of kindness. Until next time, keep your heart open, because you never know when someone might ask, "Can I sit here?"